कर्तुराज्ञया प्राप्यते फलम् कर्म किं परम् कर्म तज्जडम् कृतिमहो दधौ पतनकारणम् फलमशाश्वतम् गतिनिरोधकम् ईश्वरार्पितम् नेच्छया कृतम् चित्तशोधकम् मुक्तिसाधकम् कायवाङ्मनः कार्यमुत्तमम् पूजनं जपश्चिन्तनं क्रमात्.
We have requested Dr. Venkat Ramanan, and this is the second time he is with us. He is there to support us in delivering a course VEV 732, which is a part of an NRCVE offering of open electives to students. And to begin this, I would just read out something which one of my students has written as what. So one girl student and one boy student have written about the life of Ramana Maharishi as they have understood. And I think for me that is an immense source of satisfaction. So the first one is by Avani, and what she says is, Sri Ramana Maharishi emphasized the practice of self-inquiry as a means to realize one's true nature. He taught that the essence of being lies in realization of the self, which transcends the limitations of the ego and the mind. Through his own example, he demonstrated peace and equanimity regardless of external circumstances. What inspires many about his teachings and life is his simplicity, humility, and profound wisdom. He advocated a path of self-discovery that is accessible to all regardless of religions or cultural background. His teachings emphasize the importance of inner stillness, self-awareness, and unconditional love. His life serves as a reminder that true fulfillment comes from within and our ultimate goal is realization of the self. His teachings continue to inspire the seekers on the path of spiritual awakening worldwide. So, is Avani here? Okay, great. So this, for those who are not from the IIT community, this is something a student has written in response to an assignment. This is not something I have written down. And I'm really feeling very fulfilled that this is what the student finally understood, took away from the course. The second one is by Arpit Agarwal. Is he there? Okay, so what he has to say is that Maharishi's life story serves as a testament to the transformative journey towards self-realization, inspiring individuals worldwide to embark on their own paths, introspection, and spiritual growth. Through his teachings, the practice of self-inquiry exemplified in his question, "Who am I?" This leads us to investigate the nature of the self and outstrip the limitations of the ego. He goes on to say, Maharishi emphasized the significance of consciousness. He taught us that by focusing exclusively and questioning its nature, one could gradually solve the illusion of being a separate, limited entity confined to the physical body. According to him, the root of suffering and the sense of individuality lies in the identification of the body and the ego. And he goes on, so what inspires me most is that students at this age are getting an exposure to the teachings of Ramana Maharishi and are having a sense of balance in terms of what to go after and how to live life that is not totally dependent on material gains and identification of the physical body. With this then, I will request Dr. Venkat Ramanan to come on stage and deliver a talk on Upadesha Saram, Awakening of the Self, and this is through insights of Ramana Maharishi, Upadesha Saram, which is a summary of the teachings of Ramana Maharishi. Please.
Antaryasya bhirvidudatimiram jyotirmayam shashvatam sthanam prapya virajate vinamatam ajnanamulmonayan pashyan vishvamapitamulasati yo vishvasya pare paraha tasmai shri ramanaya lokaguruve shokasya hantre namaha. Good evening to everyone for taking their valuable time this evening to be amongst us. Professor Godara, to the esteemed members of the NCRVE, to members of Ramana Kendra, Vice President Adarsh Bhatyani ji, Dr. Dharma Chatterjee, and to all the brilliant young minds today. I promise you I'll try to make this count, and by not to sticking to easily explainable terms. This is in keeping up with Ramana Maharshi's teachings. He did not use one extra word, one extra illustration, one extra complicating, scholarly sounding terminology. He made the complex but most important practice of the Jnana Marga into the most simple and practicable form of spiritual practice. Now, the young minds here can relate to me when I say that the biggest, one of the biggest mental health challenges that they are all facing in this modern world is isolation and shallow relationships and a lack of enduring friendships. This is all over the world, and WHO has recognized this as a big crisis for the modern day. In spite of being surrounded by material prosperity, young people especially, and are probably the unhappiest they could ever be in the scales of time. You would have heard it, I mean, again, like every quote, it goes to Zen without any scientific basis. If you make friends with yourself, you are never lonely. So today, I will try to demonstrate how Sri Ramana Maharshi's teachings by awakening the self can be a game changer in the battling of the pandemic of loneliness. Ramana Maharshi himself awakened to his self much younger than all of us at the tender age of 16 through a unique death experience. Now, that itself would be a topic, so I will not go into it. But his advent on this earth was to re-establish the ancient practice of Jnana Marga, which was practiced by sages for years and years in forests and river banks, and he adapted it to be practiced in the halls of the cities, in classroom, and even in stadiums, if we so choose. He brought out the forgotten truth that the inner self is the central focus of the spiritual practice. Today, we will explore the enduring relevance of Sri Ramana Maharshi's teachings in the modern world by focusing on his sentinel work, Upadesa Sara. Upadesa Sara means simply the essence of instruction. It eliminates the central tenet of Advaita Vedanta, the awakening of the true self, the Atman. The Atman is the eternal, unchanging reality which lies veiled behind the ego and the ever-shifting mind. Upadesa Sara serves as a map, guiding us through self-inquiry to unveil this inherent treasure. We don't have to go outside ourselves. We just have to turn our focus inwards. We find this brilliant treasure of a lifetime shining, waiting to be discovered right inside us. The text is concise offering deeper understanding with each exploration. The text emphasizes that self is not something new to be attained, it is always present like the sun, but it is like the sun hidden behind or obscured by thick clouds. Through self inquiry, we dispel the illusion of the ego, allowing the self to shine forth in its resplendent nature. Upadesasara equipped us with the method for self inquiry, the primary tool for self realization, that is also called Atma Vichara, showing us the easiest method to direct the mind inward. We persistently investigate the source of the Atman, also called the spiritual I, gently pushing aside other thoughts and refocusing on this fundamental I conscious. Upadesasara underscores the importance of self surrender. We relinquish the ego with its anxieties and desires to the self. This allows the mind to settle down and become quiescent, like a lake reflecting the clear sky up. In this stillness, the self is revealed very clearly in its all purity. Upadesasara offers to the sincere seeker a crystal clear and pure roadmap to take a deep dive into the eternal self, which is Satchit Ananda. Friends, the following are the uniqueness or the importance of this spiritual practice. First of all, the direct path. It's the direct path to self-realization. Sri Ramana Maharshi's teachings reveal the direct path to self-realization through the practice of self-inquiry. The path, while rooted in the ancient tradition of Advaita Vedanta, was rediscovered by him. It bypasses the complexities of ritualistic practices, scriptures, or external authority. There are no middlemen between the seeker and the sought. By questioning the fundamental assumption of the one's individual identity, by asking inwards a question, who am I or whence am I, to each distracting thought, one is able to redirect and refocus one's attention inwards, and seekers can unravel the layers of egoic conditioning and recognize their true nature as pure awareness. The second big point is universality and inclusivity. Sri Ramana Maharshi teachings embody a spirit of universality and inclusivity, transcending cultural, religious, and philosophical boundaries. Whether one is drawn to a path of devotion, bhakti yoga, or to a path of service, karma yoga, or to hatha yoga or raja yoga, or more importantly to the knowledge, pursuit of knowledge, the jnana yoga. Sri Ramana's teaching provides a clear guidance for seekers from all walks of life. He recognized that every spiritual path is important, and the other paths, the ones apart from the jnana marga, serve as adjuncts to help a seeker on the path of jnana. Friends, this inclusivity and universality did not end with the Maharshi's passing. He shed his body in 1950, and today I can tell you the ashram gets devotees from 140 countries, including Middle East, Far East, China, and of course Europe and America. without any advertising, because inherent in all of us is persistent yearning for to find out the purpose of our birth and the search for a permanent true happiness. The third part is its practical application in daily life. By avoiding abstract philosophy or esoteric practices, Ramana Maharshi's teachings are the most practical way to perform spiritual practice in our modern time. A life of integrity, compassion, and mindfulness results from its practice. His teachings cultivate self awareness, natural humility, and equanimity in our lives. By integrating spiritual principles into everyday activities, the seeker's inner silence and stillness were shown by Ramana Maharshi as the gateway to self realization. Amidst the ceaseless chatter of the mind and the distractions of the external world, Sri Ramana guides seekers to discover the peace and tranquility of found nature in each one of us. Now, I'm going to come in an encapsulated and 15 verses each. The first half deals with the traditional approach of spirituality, which involves a gradual progression to the path of true knowledge. So, the verses which I will soon reveal to you are start with jnanam, the paths of karma, followed by bhakti, and then meditation, and through breath control. The second half is devoted to the practice of jnana marga and the practice of self-inquiry, which Ramana Maharshi asserted as the most direct path to the awakening of the self. Sri Ramana taught that the essence of each progressive stage of spiritual practice, and though he accepted the value of the preparatory practices, he patiently and persistently emphasized that the path of self-inquiry was the most direct and the shortest way through which one can attain self-realization. These verses were first written in 1927 and were completed in the latter part of this year. The first version was in Tamil, then Sanskrit, and Telugu, and then Malayalam later. So I'll start with the significant verses of the Upadesa Saram. I promise not to read too many Sanskrit verses. I'll just stick to the English transliteration so that I can keep your attention. However, the first verse is in the Indian tradition. The first verse is of an invocatory nature, and it's a plea to the divine so that the reader of the text benefits immensely from the verses to follow. So this is and there is reference to the Creator, and his Sanskrit reads Karturagya Prapyate Phalam Karma Kimparam Karma Dachanam. By the will of the Creator, action bears fruit. Is action then supreme? No, it is inert, unconscious. So Ramana Maharshi says that we not only cannot control the fruits of our action or of our behavior, we cannot even choose the actions themselves, since they are influenced by endless series of past actions. So action itself is inert, unconscious. It does not have in itself the ability to give you reward. And we can all testify to ourselves, right? Some exams we put our utmost and we don't get a B, and then some exams we just go after a party, we get a B. So we know that it's nothing is really follows a scientific trajectory. I would say they're like the modern day drones or missiles, right? Can go anywhere. And so the seeds are vasanas, involve us in a endless series of commitments and events which bind us to the outer world and prevent us from turning inward. And this, therefore, we delay discovering our true nature. Therefore, no salvation or freedom from rebirth is to be found in karma marga or just performing activities, no matter how important or how virtuous they may seem. Now, actions done, subsequently Ramana Maharshi says in the next verses, action which is done without personal desire and whose fruits are surrendered to the Lord purifies the mind and leads one on the path to liberation. However, Maharshi would warn about the pitfalls of unselfish act or too much volunteerism. He said it only by performing them and thinking of oneself as a generous and a kind person and helping someone beneath them, the ego only ends up becoming inflated, and the fruits of praise, recognition, and self satisfaction are accepted and expected. And not only we start expecting every time people to recognize us for the volunteerism that we do. But so it does not lead us to a feeling of being detached, but it leads us to a greater state of bondage. So we just falling more and more into the pitfalls of our ego getting strengthened. A person is said to be sattvic when he is free from attachment, not given to egotism, and endued with firmness and vigor, unaffected in success and failure. Then Ramana Maharshi goes to the path of bhakti, the ritual worship. Says ritual worship, repetition of sacred names, and meditation are done with speech and with the mind. And they are each better than the other. So the meditation is better than repetition of sacred names, which is better than the ritual worship. However, he cautions that these only help one on the path to spiritual progress, and by itself they will not lead to a state of attainment of the self. Silent meditation in the mind is higher than the best devotional praise or the uttering of sacred names, either loudly or softly, again says. And he says how meditation should be done. Instead of intermittent, jerky meditation, continuous meditation, even if it is for a short duration, like the unbroken flow of an oil when we are pouring, or a stream of water. Continuous meditation is better than one which is interrupted. And again, on the topic of meditation, he says meditation on the identity where when we meditate on any form or any Lord is not as good as meditating on the unity of oneself with the Lord, with the firmness, with the firm feeling that I am He. This is more purifying than the meditation which assumes a difference between the two. In a Upanishad, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, there is a quotation: "He who worships the Lord, thinking he is one and I am another, does not know." And again, it it says, he goes from death to death who sees a difference as it were in Brahman. The next verse, Ramana Maharshi says, by power of meditation devoid of thoughts, one is re-established in the true being. And this is also a form of devotion to God. The practice of fixing the mind in its source or in its heart is without doubt true bhakti, yoga, and understanding. Next, Ramana Maharshi comes to the practice of breath control. He says that both the thoughts and the breath, the source of breath, come from a common source. So, by retaining breath or doing some form of pranayama, one is able to temporarily still the mind and able to focus the mind back on the inner soul. But he cautions that this is not a state of permanence, but it's a state of laya, the temporary cessation of the mind. And once the practice of the breath control is given up, the mind comes back with all its strength, with all its crookedness. So one will be back to oneself. However, but with repeated practice, it still is of value. Now, by spiritual practices, he affirms that there is no action remaining to be done for such a yogi whose mind is extinguished. The last 15 verses are on the, after one goes through the preparatory stages, is to go to the highest form of spiritual practice, which is the self inquiry or the looking for the source of the art inwards in all of us. He says if one's attention is turned away from the external objects of sense and focused on the light of self, that is the true vision of reality. By keeping one's attention on the self is a direct way to know the mind. And this is the essence of Jnana Marga. When one looks inside, one finds that the troublemaker mind, which we thought was all powerful, is nothing but a weakling which is merely a bundle of thoughts. And for them to sustain, they need the first thought of I, our personal ego, our little life, which we build a story of ourselves in this world around ourselves and keep adding to the storylines every day. And that association is what the mind thrives on. This is the oxygen for the mind. So once we look inside and are able to trace the small mind and are able to strip it of adjuncts like I live in India, I'm this thing, I have these passions, but just be as in a calm manner without adding attitudes to one's lifestyle. The ego gets weakened and one is able to truly stay in a state of bliss of no thoughts. And every time we get a thought that disturbs us, Ramana Maharshi says, one should ask, where is this thought coming from and who am I? Every time. So, with this practice, the mind's thought production goes down. In fact, somewhere I read where in an average day produce around 40,000 random thoughts. But with spiritual practice, you are able to reduce it even by half. It's 20,000. And you bright minds know that the brain consumes 3.5 times the glucose and oxygen that muscles consume. So it's the most precious but energy consume organ in our body. So by making it quiet and unnecessary, uh, not working, we can have a still mind and also have save our energies for really tasks. Now coming back, if one asks himself, where does this I come? It will eventually vanish. This is the essence of self-inquiry or Atma-vichar. So this is not a method where one goes looking for the phantom ego, but the practice is to show that the ego does not exist. So then Ramana Maharshi says, where this I vanished and merged in its source, there appears spontaneously, continuously, the Atman, which he also calls as the true I or I. This is the center, this is the spiritual heart, the infinite supreme being. And this uninterrupted I is the true meaning of the term I, because when the waking ego daily disappears in deep sleep, this true I appears. There is only one being that can know reality. That one only being is itself reality and itself is conscious. So, in essence, friend, we are all the pure eternal consciousness trying to look for ourselves. So, this spiritual map is just to turn our focus back. We don't have to discover anything external to ourselves. The treasure is within all of us, waiting to be awakened, waiting to be discovered. But it needs a little bit of persistence and it needs a little bit of clarity of thought and progress, and the methodology, which has been very clearly given in these 30 years. And Ramana Maharshi goes on to say, both creator and the created are essentially one and the same reality. Their apparent differences are due to only differences in the form and the levels of knowledge. So it's a state that we can achieve too. He says, being the self is knowing the self, because there is only one self and not two. This being and knowing the self is abiding in the reality. If one's true self is known, then there is neither birth nor death, but eternal being, consciousness. This nutshell is the essence of Vedanta, clearly being stated by Ramana Maharshi. In the ineffable essence of this sacred text lies the quintessence of spiritual wisdom, echoing the eternal truth that the key to liberation resides within the sanctum of one's own heart. It becomes the seeker to embark upon the sacred pilgrimage of self-inquiry, surrendering the ego's fleeting illusions at the altar of divine grace and kindling the flame of devotion that illumines the path to ultimate liberation. Now, friends, I would also briefly touch upon the practical application of self-inquiry. Self-inquiry is a practical methodology called self-realization that can be applied in every aspect of one's daily life. Sri Ramana emphasizes the importance of sustained practice and mindfulness, guiding seekers to cultivate a state of continuous self-awareness amidst the activities of everyday life. One of the key principles of self-inquiry is radical acceptance, wherein every thought, emotion, and sensation is observed with equanimity and detachment. Sri Ramana encourages seekers to embrace all aspects of their experience, whether pleasant or unpleasant, recognizing them as transient phenomena arising in the vast expanse of consciousness. Through non identification with and non resistance, the person transcends the limitations of egoic conditioning, attaining a deeper understanding of the nature of reality. Another aspect of self inquiry is the cultivation of self effacement and humility. Sri Ramana teaches that true self realization arises not from intellectual knowledge or spiritual attainment, but from a profound surrender to the divine presence within each one of us. By relinquishing the sense of individual agency and recognizing the inherent limitations of the egoic mind, the seeker opens themselves to the transformative power of grace. Friends, I will start concluding. The practice of self inquiry enables each one of us to probe deeply into the nature of the self, transcending the limitations of the ego and realize the essential nature as pure awareness. In parallel, the paths of karma, bhakti, and Raja Yoga provide us with necessary strengths and the firmness of the mind for us to achieve greater depths on our ultimate spiritual path of the Jnana Marga. In the timeless words of Sri Ramana Maharshi, he said, when people ask what is the highest thing, that activity that one person can do, said your own self-realization is the greatest service that you can render to the world. May the timeless wisdom of Upadesasara inspire seekers amongst you to embark on this transformative journey of self-discovery and realize the eternal that dwells within. In the sanctuary of Upadesasara, the seeker finds refuge, shelter, and illumination. It is here, amidst its hallowed verses, that the soul discovers its true essence, unbound by the limitations of the egoic mind, and is liberated into the boundless expanse of pure consciousness. We will all be able to unveil the divine essence that resides within all of us. From a cluttered mind to self-realization, Sri Ramana Maharshi lays down the clearest, the shortest spiritual path ever. I cannot end this talk amidst such brilliant scientific minds without two references to science. I like to quote Albert Einstein, you might all have read. Only one who has understood completely a complex topic can explain it in the most simple, easy to understand language to others. So that itself is proof enough for us to give another look to Upadesasara and then to be drawn totally into it. Then Ramana Maharshi, lastly, is a scientist whose experiments are there for anyone to perform and to see the truth of the results for themselves. So I just hope some of you can put on your scientific hats and try this out for you. You'll be amazed at the transformative power of these teachings. May we all stay blessed in our awakened self. My prayer to every one of you. Thank you so much for your kind attention. Om Namo.
Thank you. Thank you very much for such an insightful talk. I would request if you would have some time for question answers. Could we request the audience for some questions?
Sure.
All right. Thank you. So, anyone would like to ask any questions? Because we promised you a talk followed by question and answer session. So, any doubts, clarifications, open to all. While the audience is questions, I'll ask you one question. What was it that motivated you to give up your flourishing practice in the US of almost 24 years as a doctor of internal medicine, to give that up and come back to Tiruvannamalai and serve at the ashram?
I may sound egoistic answering this, but being born in the family and reading Ramana Maharshi's text, and, he states in many books very clearly the highest purpose for a human birth is to achieve self-realization. And as you know, after a stage, material comforts and the awards and accolades stop meaning less and less. One of the example people give is the first mango tastes so good, the second mango not so good, but the fourth mango will give a tummy ache. So, I mean, again, I'm just a seeker, spiritual seeker like every one of you. But there was always a kind of a preparedness that wanted to come back to serve. And being part of the family, that's also a responsibility. We were raised knowing that I had to come back to serve. They are. So
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone?
So my name is Jyotika Mehta and I am a devotee.
Yes.
And my question is, you said every action is inert. Now we can be detached to the action and the fruit of action. How is action inert? That is question one.
Yeah.
Second, when we go into self-inquiry and we keep on questioning ourselves, it actually doesn't lead to, sometimes there is no answer left, So is that the end? Should we just stop there?
Yes, two questions. So she asked if is the actions itself is inert. So the fruit of any action, result is ordained by Lord God, whoever the Ishta Devata is. So the action by itself will, if it is done without surrender to the Lord as nishkamya karma, or without being attached to the results of the action, that's definitely not inert in a way, because it purifies your mind, it strengthens your will to do more, and leads you further on the path of self-inquiry. But if you look at the general what we call a chakra view of the action, it's just like a dog change. Ramana Maharshi says any action that we perform always leaves behind seed for the next action and a reaction. So in fact, some people argue whether the action we are performing the next day, is it new action at all, or is it just the reaction to the action performed the previous day itself? So our whole life story becomes not the question of free will, but we are just performing the actions that were left behind from the residue of the previous actions. Because done with an active mind, it just sows a seed for more and more action. Like if we do an action with like with expecting big results and we don't get it, the reaction of grief, anger, or hatred towards others can lead to another story, and then that itself can become a book in itself. Then we start hating others, or we start saying, oh, my destiny is I can only do so much. But an action done uh, purified and surrendered to the God, because Bhagavan is very clear, Ramana is very clear that it is jada, it is inert, because he is very clear about it. So when he says that, I have no reason to doubt him, because and and it can, you can drop off. So if I was able to drop off a 24-year-old association like that, I mean, so actions really don't have so much power. So and coming to the but a disinterested and a surrendered action does lead to progress on jnana marg. So that definitely Ramana says. So that is the jnana the karma marg. But so one should not get into just a cycle of doing performing karmas, expecting that it'll lead you to further and further. But one has to realize its limitation. The second question said, was that you get a self inquiry, get a okay. So uh, and actually that is what Atma Vichar is. The who am I inquiry is not, you're not asking yourself the question or whence am I to find an answer. It is only to show that fusion, that there was never an I, you know. So Ramana gives that example of in a in a wedding, somebody enters the wedding, and the bride people think he's the groom's family, and the groom's family think he's from the bride. So he gets all kinds of food and other things, and then when they all get together and find that, oh no, he doesn't belong to our group, and other people say he doesn't belong to our group, that person vanishes. So that's the example Ramana gives for that that the self, the Atma Vichar, or the who am I. But after the again, I'm a seeker like you. I'm not qualified with experience to talk with experience on my thing. But people say that with more and more progress on this path, it's not a state of blank, but it's a state of unalloyed happiness. What remains? The pure happiness that remains when the mind stills up, and you get more vibrant, and you become more high achieving in your daily act. People who are on this path are able to become better doctors, or better lawyers, better professors, because with this practice, the unnecessary chatter of the mind in the back, the ego ridden biases, so I look at you and say, oh, what does she's trying to trick. But I see you for who you are, and just react with you in the same natural way leads us to lead a life where we can have a very happy and less tiring and more trustworthy life. So but definitely the every theory says, I mean, the books say it's not a state of blank. But it is a state of consciousness, not a state of shunya, but it's a state of purna, where you are vibrantly alive, you're vibrantly conscious. But your only thing that is not working is the ego and the mind, but everything else is there.
Namaste, sir. I had a question. Like, what are the differences you felt in yourself after you started practicing the teachings of Ramana Maharishi? Like, before you were like in US and after you came to India in Tiruvannamalai.
You want to know the differences or how it,
Yeah, like what
Yeah.
you like, how you felt at peace, or like what are the differences you felt within yourself? Like you said that how to practice self-inquiry. So, what were the differences you felt with that?
Well, in the West, in America, I was leading an active professional world. So the limitations of time are there, definitely. And then there are, but what we found even there is that these teachings can be practiced anywhere. This can be practiced actively in the city, in the West, any parts of the world. But the and again there are on this path there are not external tangible results that I mean you can but the others around you can notice that you're definitely more calm, you're more clear, you're less egoistic, you're more paropkari, you're that you take joy in the success of others, and but you will always feel a progressive inner. That is the biggest thing of practice of this teaching is, so you can face the ups and downs of life with equanimity when you're not like shattered uh, by the happenings of the life, and nor are you elated or extra joy by the success, and you don't go chasing success as if it is the only thing that is to be done. You're clear about what is the highest thing in life, and and the I'll tell you one thing: when you like attract like, even in the West when we were there, out of nowhere you are able to uh, attract friends who are like you, who think like you, and soon you make a group of friends around you who are also on this path. So they become like your family, and so even though you're kind of living there, your inner circle or not even immediate circle becomes this like-minded, so that each of you watch out for each other without kind of saying. Now, coming back to India, definitely, because I'm in the ashram, so definitely, this I meet every day spiritual seekers, and the location, the living presence of the Guru. Definitely, there is definitely faster progress on your spiritual journey, and the uh, you know each day is something that you know is a pleasurable event, even without looking for it, without you just realize that you don't need external things to make you happy. That happiness is the inward, and the biggest thing is you meet such good people every day in the ashram, so such lovely devotees. So so that way. But but again, for the general practice of it, the Ramana Maharshi's uh, location does, even the he says, even the garb of a sannyas is only an external garb. All it's an external phenomenon. The whole journey is inwards. So that can be done, as an active engineer like you, or as much by a sannyas out. So, but we just have to dedicate, at least in the initial part of our practice, a few special moments, either in the morning or at the end of the day. But then later on, it just becomes a practice that is enabled any time. The grace of the.
Hello, sir. So my question is, what are the attachments that you gave up after, like, you were earlier a practitioner in US, and then what are the attachment that you gave up after practicing the spirituality?
See, it's a good question. There's another book of Ramana Maharshi called Who Am I? He says, we have only two choices. Either you go inward or you go outward. You cannot ride both the paths. Really, I did not give up anything. I did practice medicine with a passion. I played the role of a reasonably successful doctor in a big city, but knowing very well that it is just something not be so I did not go to create more trouble for myself. So you did not go chasing the everything in the world, but what was things that you had to do, and basic good pleasures in life we did enjoy. No conflict, but keep in the back of your mind or in your heart that there is a higher purpose to life, and these things are always not just going to there's a difference between happiness and pleasure. I mean, these things what we assume are happiness are pleasure, and they lot of times they have a cousin or a evil twin called pain. So it always ends up with thing. But please don't. My aim today here is not to make you all into Swamiji. Please, just want to know that there is that the witness, your Atman, the self, is inside all of you, and believe it or not, that is guiding you, and it will propel you to higher things.
So this is the first time I'm listening to any of the Ramana Maharshi's talk or teachings. So most of the talk in the first four things, like you talked about direct path where seeker and who is seeking something, and inclusivity and inner silence. So, and in the second part, you mentioned about meditation pranayam. I feel all the things are related to arresting the thought. And in the first phase, when you spoke, you were talking about seeking by the seeker. So it is again related to the thinking.
Yeah, it's a good question. So let me take the second part of your question. So there are two concepts in Ramana's thing. The pure mind is the non-egoic mind. The pure mind which does not have the attributes of anger, ego. So that is mind by itself is not an evil thing. It's the outgoing mind, the egoic mind is what creates all the issues. The mind turned inwards is nothing but the self. Okay, so there is a term for that. When Maharshi was asked that, yes, you are using the mind to look for its source. Yes, you are in a way using the thief, to act like a policeman. So there is a role. Or in the Hindu thing, they use that in funeral pyres. They have a stick which pushes the body in so that it gets burned, and eventually that stick also gets burnt. So the questioning mind, which is used for spirituality, is something akin to that. So you will use the mind, but after a while, the mind will stop asking questions, and it will, once it turns inwards, once it tastes the happiness of the self, it'll start looking for that inward journey. And the first part was yes. So the breath control and the other parts, they do still the mind, or they even arrest the mind. But You have to remember there are two terms Ramana used, Mano Laya and Mano Nasha. So Laya means temporarily arresting. So it'll come back again. So when you do, for example, all these pranayamic practices, with that half an hour, 1 hour, you'll feel very, very good. But then you will, you meet your friends and this thing, it'll come back with a rebound. But the Atma Vichara is the only way where the mind gets weaker and weaker and it starts getting destroyed in a way. So in that, it won't rebound. You'll find that you will naturally won't be pursuing activities of which will give you pleasure, or you'll talk less, you'll be more focused. Again, you'll be a very interesting person, I'll assure you that. But that's the answer. I hope I clarified it. Yeah. But again, it's just semantics and the depth of the experience. I mean, don't get me wrong; these are useful too. But you just after. I mean, a very. I hope I don't offend somebody, but a very senior monk told me that he meets nowadays people who have been doing mindfulness practice for 40 years who say nothing has moved, and they have the same this thing, or if anything they mourn, because there the mind is still there. So here we are going to a stage beyond the mind, to beyond the curtain of the mind.
Sir, one more
Please.
question, if you allow. What is the role of love in stealing the mind?
You mean it's external? Yeah. That so
Sorry to interrupt. Like which encompasses the term inclusiveness. I feel the love is what expresses in the form of inclusiveness. So I want to ask about it.
I mean, see, love is again a very a divine quality. It will give you happiness, and it may encourage you to pursue the spiritual practices. But again, remember that it's an emotion, and any emotion is at the level of the mind. This Ramana Maharshi's journey, spiritual path, is above and beyond the mind. So it definitely has a role, but we have to get behind it. But the saint is the most loving person. Ramana Maharshi was the most loving person that you could ever meet. He never had a harsh word for anybody, because in that there are no others in that state. So, what you give to yourself, you give to others. So definitely. So I would say love should be more a result of your practice, and it will come naturally. I assure you that.
Yeah, I'd like to find out, I have two questions.
Sure.
First is it self-learning by books that we must do, that you prophesize, or there is some regimen that one can follow on a regular basis? And the second question is, to stay in this state of mind, should one be practicing on a daily basis? If yes, for how long?
What we in Ramanashram we recommend is some basic reading is needed. The main works of Ramana Maharshi, and which are very concise and precise, like who am I, and then is the question answer to devotees. You'll get what he means and his teachings. But regarding method, it's you have to devise, because you're born with you come prepared from your previous experiences. So he always used to say, the method will find its way, but as long as your intention is pure, if you want it, that. But I would say Upadesa Saram is a beautiful thing. In 30 verses, you could quickly realize the preparatory methods, And if you already have done karma, you don't need to keep, you don't need to look backwards. You don't need to go back. So me being a doctor, I don't have to go back to learning biology just because I like cell structure and stuff thing. I have to achieve so much more. So my focus should be on the daily sustained practice. There is no timing, because there is some people. Ramana used the word. There are some devotees like gunpowder. They just have came to his presence and they realized. Some people are like good wood. They got it soon, and some people are like wet wood. They took years and years. So we don't know unless we try. And again, in this path, that is the thing with it. The quality he said that one needs on this path is a Tamil word called Dhiran, that one should be fearless and persistent. And because in any bhakti marga, you would have memorized 300 books. Tomorrow you'll memorize 301. Or karma marga, you would say you build 10 clinics, you'll build 13. So there are things you can quantify. But on this is a thing of unlearning. It's inward path. We don't know. We might be in a handshaking distance of the Atman, and we won't even feel that we are there. And next day you wake up, you probably realized. So you just have to. But then, as the devotees tell me, even the journey becomes very happy. Your life becomes more fulfilled, more full, more. The depth of happiness is really high. You don't need an external thing to make you happy. It's really a very good life if you can do it. There are to some devotees, to a Britisher, one of the first one is a Major Humphreys in 1910. He asked this question to Maharshi. So he said, definitely taking out certain time during the day is helpful, especially he said the morning when you wake up and before going to bed. Those two qualities, those time are efficacious for spiritual practice. Thank you.
So on behalf of all of you, I would like to extend our gratitude to Dr. Ramanan for being with us and giving us such a lucid and accessible talk on Upadeshasaram, which is actually Ramana was a man of few words, and I always thought that reading one verse requires a few days to think about it, understand, and get it. So as a prelude to that, I would also like to thank Professor Bhupender Godara, who has actually been providing this course to the students, giving access to Ramana's teachings and exposing the students to Ramana's teachings. So we actually in the National Resource Center for Value Education and Engineering, on Saturdays, a few of us meet and we actually read and discuss teachings of various things. We had discussions on the Buddha's teachings and so on. And Professor Godara brought in and said, can we read this book by Ramana? There's a book on Who Am I by Ramana Maharshi. And that is where it all started. And then he was inspired to offer a course on the teachings of Ramana Maharshi. And it has been now happening for 3 or 4 semesters? Third semester running now. And this is the second time that Dr. Ramanan has been invited by Professor Godara for sharing his insights and understanding with us. And so I would, in that sense, be grateful to the whole chain of events that have actually brought us today to this talk. So I'm sure all of you enjoyed being with Dr. Ramanan and listening to the insights from Ramana Maharshi's teachings. Ramana was an ocean, actually. If you look at the books would be just small, thin, small booklets. And you say, okay, so we can read this in half an hour. But you can read it in half an hour, but it's a lifetime's journey that you actually internalize it and start living that. So with this, I would again express our gratitude to Dr. Ramanan for being here and sharing his wisdom with us. Thank you.